Hi everyone. I decided to make a video just to explain some of the process of upgrading your computer these days. Hopefully you can learn a thing or two, or if you're hesitant about upgrading, not sure, maybe this will help. It was tough to find a video online on YouTube just to see what how difficult or how to install these heat sinks these days because they're huge. So I decided, I'm gonna make a video. Hopefully, it will help somebody out who aren't sure. And it is a big investment as far as upgrading to the components these days. And there are certain things that you have to do. And you can see my heatsink, Corsair A70. It's got two fans. It's a big, fat, huge heatsink. It looks even bigger in person. So I decided, at first I went out and bought an i3 550 processor, and I realized, that's an LGA 1156, and I didn't do my research. I rushed and bought it, and I quickly realized there aren't motherboards to support it, so I sold it and did some research and bought the i5-2500k. Great solid chip with it's unlocked, powerful, and that's about $205. And I decided, it's more expensive than I originally planned, but it should be powerful enough for many years to come. I decided to uh, choose the ASRock Z68 Extreme 3 Gen 3 board for several reasons. For one, it's the price. I think I paid 115 for it. A solid board. It's got some very cool Sandy Bridge features. It's um, it's got this cool feature where you can add an SSD drive to serve as your virtual drive cache for speeding up your system. It's better than trying to plop down a couple $100 on a small, you know, SSD as your main drive when you can just decide to buy even a used one later on, a 20 gig, 40 gig, 30 gig SSD, and just add it to your system. I think it makes more sense for most of us. So it's something I can do later, and that's the flexibility that I liked about it. The other feature is that it has onboard video, graphics video, which can, through the software, uh, run when your graphics card, your gaming card, is not needed for browsing the internet, emailing, word processing, something like that. So if I'm not going to be playing games 24/7, so I don't need to waste energy and the power just to do simple multitasking everyday chores. But in any case, that has a nice feature. The other feature is you can plug an MP3 player with a jack to the motherboard, and you can play music without turning your computer on. And I've always had times where I wanted to do that, but I didn't want to turn on my computer. So that's a great feature. I'm glad they thought of that. It's got audio, onboard audio, which is fine. I mean, I have a Razer Barracuda that I'm not probably not going to use now because I think the onboard sound is decent. It even works for games. So, and it has optical out too. Um, if you want to connect it to a stereo system or something. Right now, I'm trying to figure out how much pressure to put on that retaining lever. So I haven't really upgraded in years. I'm a little hesitant because the new chips and the new boards and the new brackets, retention brackets. It takes a little bit of force, but I was afraid, I don't want to screw this up and break something, so I took my time. After a couple minutes, I managed to get everything installed, and I even got paranoid and tried to wipe some of the grease, finger grease, so that it doesn't interfere with my thermal paste application. So at this point, I'm feeling pretty good, and I think the most important part would be trying to install the heatsink. That's probably the trickiest part. I'm not saying it's hard. It's just you have to just go for it and do it. Once you understand how to apply the thermal paste, just go ahead and do the best you can, and I think everything will turn out fine. I chose Kingston HyperX DDR3 PC 1600 because it's not the fastest, but it's solid. It doesn't have the big, huge heat shields that some of them do these days, so it's great because I can actually fit that underneath my big fat heatsink fins and not have to alter anything. That's a nice feature. Once you mount your motherboard into your case, that's not a bad thing to have be able to do. Just take out DIMMs because maybe one goes bad, or you want to replace it with a new set for dual RAM, dual channel. So I didn't have to alter anything, which some people said that they had to do with their memory chips. So that's not a bad deal. And I plan on using 8 gigs. I think 8 gigs is plenty. I believe some of the when I max out, when I do a lot of program multitasking, I'm using about 4 to 4.5 gigs of RAM, and I've got 4 cores, so everything is a lot better now than it used to be. With the old 2 gigs, it really was a bottleneck. So now I'm applying the paste. It can be tricky. It's not something you do every day, so I'm sure no one's going to be perfect. I chose to apply that in the method I read from Arctic Silver, is to use the line for dual cores, or quad cores, I mean. Obviously, everybody says, typically you do the rice grain size, but in this case, I'm going to try something different, and it kind of makes sense, but I think I might have put a little bit too much. I probably put a little bit more than 2 rice grains worth. But, it's what's done is done. It's not a perfect science, and at least there's thermal paste there. Once it gets squeezed down to a thin layer, it should be alright. Should be kind of automatic. So the tricky part is to get that big fat heatsink down and screwed evenly. You want to cross the pattern of the screws to put the, and you want to gradually screw them all and not just tighten one screw at a time. You want to do all 4 in a sequence that gradually presses down on the thermal paste in more of an even way. So once that's done, I think everybody can handle that. I think the trickiest part is done. Of course, other than installing all your operating systems and software. But the physical work, I think the tricky part is done. So at this point, I'm pretty relieved. I mean, all these parts, all this preparation boils down to actually just doing it. Choosing your components, choosing what's the best bang for your buck. Maybe some of you are hurt for cash these days, and I understand that. So I try to build mine with not going for the best speed, fastest speed, but just the sweet spot, the best bang for your money, and still being effective. And it's so far, after using it, it's great. I have no complaints. It's a definite boost from my old quad Q66 with measly 2 gigs of DDR2 RAM. So the new system is running very snappy, very fast, especially with video editing and gaming. There's virtually no bottlenecks other than my video card, which is a little dated, but it's pretty solid. The old GTX 460 still handles Battlefield 3, I think, very nicely, very playable. I'm sure it's going to even handle Modern Warfare 3 even better. So with Skyrim, it's great. I don't see anything that holds it back, unless you're someone who wants extreme frame rates like 60 or something. So the video card I can always upgrade later. I think I'm going to wait till the next generation uh, of video cards before I spend any more money. So at this point, I'm just trying to cross my T's and dot my I's and just you basically have to just figure things out as you go. I mean, there's no one set of directions for installing building a PC, given all the components. So you just have to go with your gut instincts. I have built many systems in the past, so I'm familiar, I'm comfortable. But even then, mounting this heatsink I've never done before, so I wasn't comfortable. But once I did it, it wasn't very hard after all. So at this point, I'm nearly done with the hard part, and it's just a matter of installing the motherboard into the case after this, and just kind of finalizing, where do my fan power cables hook to. It's nice to hook it up to the motherboard because you can control the fan speed um, through the motherboard, or have it automatically controlled, adjusted uh, on the fly through the motherboard. So that's kind of nice. Just hope that your cables reach. The one thing about the OCZ Monstream Pro supply power supply is that the power cable to the motherboard, it barely reaches. I had to snake it underneath my video card. And I don't understand the companies that um, they give you such a short cable, power cable, when they should realize that most cases these days the power supply goes on the bottom where it's coolest. Yet the power connection to the motherboard is totally on the opposite side of being on the top. So it's a little frustrating sometimes when that happens because you would think that manufacturers would know better, but they don't. And so in any case, with the modular style power supply, I did not have to use all the power cords, connectors, or molecs, and so I didn't have to install those cables if I didn't want to, and it came out pretty clean. Virtually no air restriction for my cables compared to my old power supply, which was a rat's nest of cables and was really restrictive. So I'm really happy with this build. It's nice and clean. I only use the connectors that I need to, and it turned out, I think, really nice. Better than I expected. I was pretty impressed with how organized. And here you can hear relatively how the fan noise is, and it's not bad even with the door off. With the door on, you hear a humming, you know, but you won't notice it after a while. And so I was pretty happy. The other feature about this motherboard is that I know that everybody gets nervous about upgrading their BIOS, installing their BIOS. I am like that too. I hear horror stories all the time. But the way they did it was very simple, and the best I've seen so far is you just download the BIOS update file on your USB stick, load up the BIOS, and navigate to their proprietary or their BIOS update utility tool, and it finds your BIOS file automatically, and it just installs it in a matter of 2 minutes. And I think it's great because I didn't have to worry about that. Didn't have to worry about screwing my board up. So it was very successful at that. I was really happy. One less headache to worry about. And in the next few seconds, I'll show you some basic heat temp readings after I install Windows 7 64-bit, Windows 7 Ultimate. And I think the findings are I'm not a pro, I'm not an expert, but for just an enthusiast, I was pretty happy with the readings. And this is all on stock speed, so I haven't overclocked anything. And when I do, um, heat will probably be a little bit greater. But hope you guys enjoyed this video, and maybe I'll do a follow-up in the weeks to come. In the meantime, enjoy the holidays and don't be afraid of your upgrade ambitions. All right, see ya. Okay, now I'm back with some real-time temperatures, CPU temperatures, and you can see it's in the mid-teens to mid-20s. I'm not sure why it fluctuates so much between the cores. Not sure if that's normal, but as you can see, I've got a couple apps running, a video editing and a video capture program. Uh, Almost 3 gigs of RAM's already being used. I'm glad I've got 8. CPU usage is fairly low. Nothing's really running, but let me. This is stock CPU speed, 3.3 gigahertz, uh, with the Corsair fan going. Let me run a prime test and stress out the CPU cores a little bit and see what readings I get. You can see as soon as the CPU usage jumps to 100%, almost 5 gigs of RAM being stressed, um, the temperature shot up to mid to high 30s Celsius, so I'm not sure how hot that is, what, 80s, 90 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm not sure. But fairly low, I think. Uh, Seems to be more consistent now that the cores are being maxed out individually. So as far as I'm concerned, that's pretty good. Eventually, I will be overclocking this, and I'm sure the temperatures will get a little bit hotter. So this is all I have for now. I hope it helps. Most of you with a little more understanding of what you're getting into. I'm not an expert by any means. Just an average guy trying to figure out what upgrades are worth doing and spending your hard-earned money on. So good luck to everybody, and maybe I'll do a follow-up video later. Thanks for watching.